Hello, in this lesson, we will be delving a bit deeper into the restriction cycle and how that affects you, your physical, mental, and emotional health. There can be extreme consequences to constant food restriction, undereating, or dieting, and we can see this through the science and research, particularly the Minnesota study that looked at the long-term effects of starvation. In this study, a group of young, healthy men were placed on a strict calorie restriction to see how it would affect their health. There were 3 phases of the study. The first was an initial control period of normal eating, a second semi-starvation period where the men ate half their usual intake, and the third a rehabilitation phase where the men slowly reintroduced food back into their diets. So how did this actually affect them? Well, after the first 3 months where the men ate nutritionally complete meals, the second phase of the semi-starvation study actually revealed some really interesting and dramatic changes that not only affected them physically, but psychologically as well. The physical changes were diverse and impacted the whole body. These included fatigue, weakness, or fainting due to the lack of energy nutrients, dizziness and headaches due to drops in their blood sugar levels, a lower metabolic rate, which was linked to the loss of lean muscle mass. They also had lower bone strength, and the nutrient deficiencies that they experienced put them at risk of lower immunity, fertility, and sleep quality. The psychological changes that the men experienced was mainly due to the fact that the brain was not getting enough energy and therefore not functioning properly. These changes included increased mood fluctuations, intense and negative emotional reactions, decreased enthusiasm, increased irritability, reduced motivation and concentration, a lower problem-solving and comprehension capacity, impaired decision-making. They experienced more depression and anxiety. They had lower self-worth and self-esteem, experienced more frequent negative thoughts. They had lower memory retention and libido. After 6 months of restriction, they were slowly able to reintroduce more food back towards their usual amount. From 2 months to 2 years after the study, these men still struggled to return to normal eating and developed different behaviors from when they started. These included unusual food routines and rituals, binge eating frequency and volume of food increased. They became more obsessed with food. They didn't waste anything on their plates and ate every last crumb. Some started chewing gum in excess, whilst others started smoking for relief. The study also saw changes to the attitudes of these men towards food, particularly preoccupation with food. They felt more anxious around meal times and they began food rationing. The other social changes that they witnessed was that the men were feeling more critical of others, more introverted and isolated. So when you look and think back to any of the periods that you were restricting or dieting, I want you to consider if you have experienced any of these changes or consequences to your physical and mental health. And to bring this all together, this landmark study actually reveals many repercussions for participating in dieting and restriction. We know that starvation triggers the body to adapt. It will break down our tissue for energy and nutrients. It will conserve energy by impacting how each system functions, and it also impacts our behaviors. Restriction creates a disconnect between the body and self through these behaviors. The consequences affect all areas of our health as well as our relationship between food, eating, and our body. Dieting then causes a reliance on the external rules to dictate what, when, and how we eat. So that is why the only way to end this vicious restriction cycle is to break it. Now for our activity, please head to the workbook to complete part 2, where we further break down your food beliefs and where they stem from. Thank you so much for listening to this lesson. I have activities that you can start putting into practice from this module's guidebook. And remember to please like, subscribe, or share this video with others who may find it helpful.